What's going on, everyone? Josh High here with Results Driven REI, and I'm pleased to have Coach Bo join me here on our Student Spotlight. One reason why we love to do this is because I always think that it's great for people to understand, for the people who are seeing a lot of success in the business. And here in a moment, we'll bring Justice on, and I'm very excited to share some of his wins and his success. But it's very important to know where he was when he first got started into building his team, right? The action steps that he took. And then what challenges did he face after he saw that first round of success? And then what action items after that? And then talking about where he's at today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Justice onto the call. Justice,
Hey,
what's going on, man?
what's going on? That's some epic music you guys got going on for that intro there.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Leveling up.
I see the sunshine down there in Florida looking good.
Yeah, dude. Well, it's kind of chilly. It's into the high 60s. I had to bring out my seasonal hoodie. Make sure that we're staying nice and toasty.
It's like 45 degrees here. I don't complain about 60 degrees. Come on, man. Well, dude, I'm super grateful and super excited to have you on the call here. And one thing I always like to do is I like to bring the coach working with you, Coach Bo. I know he's been monumental in a lot of your success as well. And I just wanted to talk about, let's rewind here to about, was it a year ago that you jumped into small group?
Yeah, pretty much a year. I think it was the beginning of 2023 when I officially signed up. I think I went to the 2-day around this same exact time, like right now that I think you guys are just finishing up a 2-day too, right?
So we have one we have our next 2-day workshop Thursday and Friday this week.
Thursday, Friday this week. So I'm pretty sure this was the 2-day that I went to 12 months ago.
Yeah, crazy, man. Funny. So let's talk about, where was your business at that point in time? A little over a year ago. What all did it look like?
So I was just coming out of what I lovingly call the dark ages of my business.
The dark ages.
The dark ages. It was basically when interest rates first started rising, and I had started to try and build out my team for the first time. It was Q3. For context, it was my second year in business. The first year I was just on my own, just like door knocking, cold calling, getting my deals. Second year, I started to try and build a team. I joined a mentorship. I hired a coach, and we started implementing some things. I hired an acquisitions guy in Q2, and I didn't have any of the onboarding, the systems, the training that we have now in Results Driven. And so I just kind of brought him on. He was actually a friend of mine. I hired him, and he was a really, really hard worker. He was hungry. Like he wanted to be successful, but I just couldn't make him successful. I wasn't good enough yet as a sales trainer to take someone who didn't understand anything about real estate and get them to close deals. I couldn't take what was in my head and give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's a completely different skill set, which I learned. And I had to just swallow that pill. So we basically went all of Q3 before the 2-day, not getting many deals. Like we were missing a bunch of opportunities. The market had just dipped, and things were super, super, super tough. I mean, things got pretty tight. I hired another coach that came in, and we were looking at all the stats, and basically I just had to jump back in myself. That's when I went to the 2-day, because I was like, I need to get some more knowledge, get some more skills. I need to become better, because the skill set that I have right now just isn't doing the job. And at that 2-day, I talked to a whole bunch of people. I was able to understand like the onboarding, the training, the systems, all the different things that I should have put in place in order to have him be successful, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. And so That's where I was before I came to the 2-day workshop. I mean, we had just came out of that. Like I just had started closing a couple of deals again, because like we needed revenue in order to keep the lights on. And that's where I was when I showed up at that 2-day. Like that is literally what had just happened. That is what I went through, and it sucked. But hey, it's part of the process, right? You got to learn the lesson somehow.
At the end of the day, man, in business, there's seasons, right? And one of our goals is to make sure that people don't have to go through, similar to what you're talking about. They don't have to go through, and this is something Tiff talks all the time about. Before you ever hire someone, come out to a 2-day workshop. Make sure you thoroughly understand what onboarding looks like. It's not just handing someone a script and saying, go close deals, right? It's not saying, come shadow me or anything like that. And that's a lot of the mistakes that we see in the business. So you hire a friend, And
Yeah.
we've been there, done that. And I think a lot of people in the industry, you know, they go and some of their first hires are friends or family, right? And it's fortunate that a lot of times we don't put them in a position to be successful because of the lack of onboarding, the lack of the management framework. And you actually touched on something that I'd like to bring up here in a little bit, but you talked about how you didn't have the skill set to be a sales manager. Okay. So we'll shelf that and we'll come back to it. But a workshop later on, you end up joining small group and you start to work with Coach Bo. So Coach Bo, can you talk about what were some of the things that you initially focused on with Justice to help him get the success, to then be in a position to then go and invest more into his business and really start to focus on building the team?
So Justice has always been really good at understanding numbers, but he didn't necessarily know how to reverse engineer to actually make it predictable at the end of the day. So Justice, you may or may not remember, but I remember the first meeting that we had, you basically showed me all of your KPIs within acquisitions and marketing. You were tracking them, but you weren't necessarily able to like leverage them and make them make sense to like make better decisions. And at that time you were in the red of like everything of like where you wanted to be. And I was like, look, man, like let's reverse engineer this. Like, let's put these things in place and let's put the right people in the right seats and start to structure this thing out accordingly. Because you just didn't know what you didn't know. And so those were like the most important things that we kind of dove into first and foremost. And so that was the biggest thing for me.
So creating some predictability through reverse engineering, accountability to metrics. I know one thing also that you've actually shared with me, Justice, was like you had to jump back into the seat, right? So really the focal point right out the gate was, you know, revenue will solve all of our problems as business owners. So in a moment where we need where we want to invest into the business, like we've got to go generate the revenue. And for the first 30 days in the seat, you ended up having a lot of success, right? You mind talking a little bit about that, kind of and even the mindset shift, because there's a lot of people here on the call that are in that stage right now. Like they've got to create revenue. They've got to be able to have the capital, then turn around and invest into the business.
Yeah. And that's actually the exact words that you told me when I was at the two-day is revenue will solve your problems. Cause I was telling you my challenges and that's what you said. And that's like where I was able to place my focus. Cause one thing that I struggled a lot with, and I think a lot of people do, is just there's so many different things you could be doing with your time. Like there's so many different things, so many different problems to solve or things that pop up that you don't actually end up moving the needle on the thing that matters. And like, I'm reading a book right now called Ready, Fire, Aim. And he talks about like, until you hit $1 million, the founder's job is to produce revenue, take sales calls. And so that was like the thing that Josh, you told me and like shifted my focus. Like, I just need to be on the phones. I need to be talking to sellers and I need to be getting contracts. And so that's what I did. I treated myself like an acquisitions person. I put myself into that seat. I set goals for myself, how many processes, how many offers, how much projected profit I'm going to lock up. And I just tracked them meticulously. And it did two things. Number one is I actually started getting deals. So like there was 1 week where I locked up 105 grand in just 1 week, 4 deals, just because that's all I was doing. Awesome. That was it. That was all I was trying to focus on, is just getting deals done. So that was the first thing, is we actually got money so that way I could invest back into the business. And then the second thing was it allowed me to have very clear and predictable KPIs for somebody when they come on board, that this is what success looks like, because I just did it for 60 days straight. And I have all my processes. I have all my offer calls. I have all my contracts that you can listen to and go back to. And I can train and be able to teach somebody with confidence because I have a process I've been following and I can teach you that process. So those are the two big things that it helped me with. And that's what I focus on. It's just RGA. You call them RGAs, revenue generating activities. Get that money, ring that money bell. Just go get that. So yeah, focus on that. Like,
so you do a great job in the 60 days, right? And one thing you talk about is having that teachable, scalable process. Okay. So now let's start to transition into this conversation. You've got the revenue to invest back into the business. Okay. You have a clearly defined process that's teachable, that's scalable, that's accountable, right? And then when you go to hire this person, like, so talk about who was your next hire or next two hires. And then let's have that conversation around being the sales manager and having that sales manager skill set.
Yeah. So my next hire was after I got all those contracts, I needed somebody to help me close them. So I tried and I started hiring for a transaction coordinator operations person. to help me get those contracts closed, and also started looking for my next salesperson. Because when I jump back into the seat, the worst part, like thinking back about it, it's a blessing and a curse, because he's doing amazing now. I absolutely love the guy. We're still friends. My first acquisitions guys that I brought on. But I know that if I had the tools that I had now, he would have been successful in the role. Like, he had the work ethic and the grit. I just wasn't an adequate enough trainer to give him the skill set, and I didn't have the processes and the accountability and the systems to make him be successful. So he's doing well now, and I just wish I had that stuff. But it's a lesson that you take and you learn. And I applied it on my next acquisitions hire, which is a guy who I actually got from a competitor who ended up closing shop because he ended up going into multifamily. And so he already had some experience doing some acquisitions, but he had a sales background from a completely different mindset of sales. So he came from selling like leads to contractors, selling like he did a little bit of door-to-door sales as well. So it very much was push for the yes, not necessarily go for no and have the seller pull you to yes, which is kind of the sales technique and psychology we talk about a lot with how we teach. So we had to kind of untrain some bad habits and then give him the necessary tools to be successful. But because we had that process, it was easy to hold him accountable and go over and review every single call and teach him, the why behind the different parts of the sales psychology and like why we do these things and how it works. And the thing that made it even more successful is like him actually implementing this stuff, is I had just done it for the last 60 days. So I was able to show him the calls that I had just closed and all the people that we reviewed using the same sales process. So that's who I hired next. It was another sales guy. It was an operations coordinator to help coordinate all the deals. And that's kind of like when I took the systems and I implemented them in order to help him be successful. And he had 4 contracts in the first 30 days. My other guy was with me for 6 months and had 2. Like, it's just night and day having like that level of training up front and having the confidence in like a system that you can teach to somebody else, and having somebody that has a little bit of more of that experience as well helped. I definitely will say that. But even if he didn't have experience with just the right system, the right training, like you can be successful with what you're doing if you put the reps in. So.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I love it. And huge success right out the gate with a new hire there, 4 deals in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
Now, what was the next bottleneck that you faced? What was the next challenge in your business? You have these 2 hires. You just created a bunch of revenue for your business. You sitting in the seat yourself. You make these 2 hires. Boom, we face a challenge. What was that challenge?
Well, once I made the hires, I had to keep them performing. That was the next thing that happened. So like after I got the people in the right seats, I had to make sure that I had the right visibility on the numbers that were being produced on a daily basis, right? Like how many processes are we making? How many offers are we making? How many contracts are we getting? And then the dashboard that we were able to look at, like the dashboard that you guys have that allows you to track and see how many processes per offer, how many offers per deal. It allows you to look and see, okay, here's the bottleneck, like here's the red flag. And that's not something that I had with my other acquisitions guy. It was just like, we had an appointment. We didn't get the contract. No idea why. I don't know if the process was bad. I don't know if the offer was bad. I don't know if it broke down at the contract. So one of the issues that we actually ran into and we worked through with Isaiah was at one point, we actually were getting a lot of offers accepted, but not a lot of contracts signed. So like I looked up at my scorecard one day and I was like, man, we're sitting at like eight offers per deal right now. Like that's not good. Why is that? So I went and I dove in and I listened to the offer calls and we had them accepted, but we weren't setting expectations properly on the purchase agreement. So we had like 4 or 5 purchase agreements that had gone out, but never got signed after they got accepted. But I never would have known that if I hadn't been looking at the red flags on the scorecard to dive in and pinpoint that. So we adjusted that, we fixed it. He started setting expectations and boom, we started getting contracts again. So it's like giving you visibility, man. Like that was the next thing that we faced.
So, you know what's crazy? You bring up a great point here. So many people talk about KPIs, track, right? It's kind of like a sexy term in this space. And one, if people are tracking KPIs, they don't know what they mean, the story being told here, right? So we track metrics because we want to understand the trend.
Yes.
And when we see conversions, so one thing that's important is once we build the team, right, we've got the key metrics we want to track. We start to track them. We see a story told, and then we work to go and optimize those conversions. And when we see that story being told, we see a standard, right? So a standard, you just brought up offers per contract. A standard that we have, like our team consistently, week in and week out, is converting at 2.5 to 3 offers per contract. So if I see that spike up to 5 or 6, that's a red flag. There's like alarms going off. Josh, hey, there's issues going on here. We've got to go dive into that. And so one, if we're not tracking those metrics, we would never have line of sight to it, to your point, and we can't work to go find out what the issue is. But even for a lot of people who are tracking those types of things, they don't understand what they're looking for. They don't understand what the story being told is, and therefore they can't work to go and solve that. So that's a skill set that you've learned. And let's talk about this. So Bo, talk through, Justice has mentioned that one of the biggest things that he's taken away, and I'm sure I know the type of person that you are, Justice. You probably say you haven't arrived yet, but I'd say you're doing pretty darn good. But talk about like your conversations with Justice around the skill set around being a sales manager.
So I think the biggest thing about Justice is he is a massive action taker. And anytime that, I myself or another coach is working with somebody, like that's a blessing in disguise, right? Because, typically like we're the subject matter experts in teaching the content. Justice does a really nice job of taking action and absorbing the content. If he doesn't truly understand, he'll ask questions. So I'm a big believer that like I'll teach you and I will help guide you. Like I'll provide those resources to you. But I've told Justice time and time again, like if you can teach me this content back, I know that you're increasing your level and your skill sets. And so I think he took that very, internally and personally on his own demand, because that's just the type of person that he is. And so through time, I was able to, understand that he's now understanding this, which gave me the confidence as a coach, like, hey, man, like you can go apply this now to the people that you've been in. So that gave him a level of confidence, like everything that he's talking about with identifying the red flag in the offer, like really increased his skill set and being a solid like sales manager.
Justice, what do you think are, outside of the red flag indicators, and obviously the onboarding being very important, what else do you think has contributed to your growth specifically as a sales manager?
Something that Bo and I did often was we actually would role play. So like I would role play situations where I would try and teach a concept, and instead of just saying the answer, asking the question. So I've always been like a curious person. So I've always liked to ask questions, but I think one thing that I've developed over like the last 6 months of trying to intentionally be better at this. And like you said, I definitely don't think I've arrived. I definitely know that I have room to improve with being a sales manager. But one thing that I've been very intentional about is asking pointed questions to get people to come to the answers themselves. And so instead of when I hear something that's a little bit off in a sales call saying, I would do this instead, I ask, okay, well, can you walk me through your thought process as to why you went about it this way? Get the context. Okay. So, when we're going about and we have somebody that tells us, that they have to think about it, I guess I know we've talked about this before, but like, what are some tactics? Like, what are some different ways that we could go about handling that? And then they throw that out. And then I go, okay, well, this one you mentioned, why do you think that could have maybe worked in this scenario? And like, I go through and I just start asking questions as far as like, and walking them through. The other thing I learned was that gapology framework that we talk about a lot, which is like closing the action gap, the importance gap, and then the last gap, the culture gap, the accountability gap, like that last part, which I think is still the spot that I'm like really trying to focus on being better at. But like just walking them through that with questions as far as like, do you know how to do this? Is this something that you just don't know how to do? Do you know why it's important? Why it's important. Okay, can we commit to that? Can I hold you accountable to doing that? And then going forward. And so that's like some of the stuff that I've been a lot more intentional about, and I think has helped with making sure that the things that we're talking about and trying to implement actually get implemented and not just talked about and like not followed through on. So that's some of the things that I've tried to be more intentional about over the last like 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. And I love to see the growth, and you guys have been crushing it. So talk a little bit about what's the team look like? What's the operation look like today?
Today, the team, man, I love my team. So right now we finally found an ops coordinator. So she is running our TC currently. I've got acquisitions person, Isaiah. Shout out to my guy. He's locking up deals right now as we speak. We've got Sincere, who's transitioning from follow specialist to closer. And then I have 2 other follow specialists, Alex, and then I have one more that's currently being hired. And then a marketing assistant, Nay. She's also really great, making sure our marketing stuff's going out. So that's our team currently. We got our ops coordinator doing the TC stuff, acquisition slash or a closer slash follow-up specialist, another follow-up specialist, a follow-up specialist being onboarded, and then our marketing assistant, Nay, who's helping us with the marketing. So that's our team currently.
So you've got a solid team here, right? Now, what kind of deal flow are you guys experiencing?
Well, we're focused on net profit right now. We're trying to do bigger deals at less volume. So we're sitting at about 4 to 5 closed transactions every month, but we're trying to push our average profit per deal up from the 20 that it was at. And right now, the last like 11 contracts that we have, our average for all those is about 38. So we're trying to get it closer to 40. So,
so you're looking at anywhere between 100 and 150 a month, essentially, right?
Yeah, we've got 195K projected to close in the next 60 days right now.
Congratulations, man. That is huge. Yeah, that is awesome. Bo's over here getting jacked. He's like, there you go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, again, I greatly appreciate you hopping on here. And one thing I love to do is ask anyone who's on here. So I'll ask you this. What's one thing that you would tell someone who's sitting in the shoes or in the position that you were just over a little over a year ago? What word of advice would you give someone?
I think get the knowledge as fast as you can, and implement it even faster. So like, there's this really funny, cool, interesting little story thing that I heard a couple of different podcasts. Like it's kind of daisy chained along, but it's what is it costing you in order to not make $1 million a year? So whatever it is that you're making right now, minus $1 million. It's the opportunity cost. So every single day that you delay getting the information and knowledge on how to build a flipping, wholesaling, real estate investing company, build out a team that's doing 7 figures a year, it's costing you that much money minus whatever it is you're making. So if you made $100,000 last year, it's costing you $900,000 a year to not go and invest the money to get the skill set, get the knowledge, get the training, get the systems in order to get you closer to that result faster. So there's no difference between me and anybody else that's watching or listening to this. It's just knowledge and skill set. And the only way you can get a skill set is by applying knowledge. And you're going to suck at first. I was really, really bad. I'm still not great. I'm getting better. But the only way that you do is by giving yourself permission and then just moving forward regardless. And so take the action, fast, move forward. Yeah.
Get the knowledge fast and implement it even faster.
That's
I love that. So that reminds me of this equation. And I heard this once, knowledge plus action equals results. Okay. The one thing that people, a lot of people really make an emphasis on the knowledge component. Yes, the knowledge is important, but you said implement even faster, take action even faster. There is an exponent to the action piece in this equation. Is that knowledge plus action squared? Action, with a 10 above it, 100 above it? I don't know. But knowledge without action, we know we'll get no results. So get the knowledge fast, implement even faster to get the results that you want. I love it, man. Great advice.
That's exactly right, dude. I want to say one last thing too, just that something that Tiffany shared with me when I was hanging out with you guys, when I went up to the office, that I think was kind of like the kick in the butt that actually got me to start building out the team. Because Tiffany is really great about just saying things very direct and how it is. And I just needed that at the time, which is awesome. Like, I really appreciate her and she's great. And so the thing that she told me, and you guys actually told me together, we were having dinner after the office and we were all hanging out and it was like pizza and wings. We were just talking, and something that you guys said is, Justice, you're very analytical and you like to think things through, but sometimes you think too much. And I was like, that's interesting that I think about things. And I said something, I was like, overthinking my thinking. That's something you said. And whenever it comes to doing something that's uncomfortable, I think people have different tendencies, but one of mine is like, whenever something's uncomfortable coming up, like building out a team, like getting that extra level of responsibility, you find creative ways to procrastinate and put things off, especially if you've had scars in the past. Like I had that whole bad experience of that bad hire beforehand. And so it kind of had scarred me a little bit, like even subconsciously. And so I just kept putting off and thinking I had to have everything perfect and lined up. And I wasn't taking action on actually making that next hire and putting out the job ads and doing the interviews and like starting to build that team. But, you know, when Tiffany just sat down and was like, hey, you're not going to get to your goal if you don't actually take action on this, like stop overthinking it. And I stopped overthinking it. And I just started like moving forward with putting out the job ads and doing the interviews. And even though I didn't really know what I was doing and it was uncomfortable, like I needed to just continue to step through that. And so like, that was the one thing that kind of like helped shift my mindset. Like there was a bunch of like mindset shifts that you guys helped me through that I think actually was the biggest lever in like, because we talk about taking action, right? Like we talk about like being quick to implement, but the thing that stops us is not like not knowing what to do. It's like the mindset that we have and the belief systems that we hold. So like that mindset shift of just being okay with moving in the direction and not having to have it all figured out. And the tools and the systems that you guys provide, knowing that that's enough to get you started in the right direction. And like, yeah, that's what I'll say is like just those mindset shifts is truly, truly important.
Well, I think what you just demonstrated there in and of itself is the best advice I think I've ever heard anyone give, period. And Bo kind of alluded to this earlier, and like that really solidified it. And really that point being is you are one of the most coachable people that I've ever met. And there's no doubt that that's led to a lot of your success and just the level of growth in just 12 months. Like I can't even imagine what the next 12 months are going to look like, or 24 or 36 months. You know what I mean? So it's just really exciting, man. And hats off to you. Honestly, like you're seeing a lot of success. I'm loving watching the journey, and I'm excited to help you grow even more, man. So, I greatly appreciate you for hopping on the call here, and sharing, really your story, some of the journey here, and hopefully it was inspiring for some of you guys that are watching. I think that there's a lot of key points, a lot of nuggets that Justice talked about, some of his breakthroughs and some of the challenges that he faced, to help him get him where he is today. And like you said, you haven't arrived yet. We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
You're just getting started. So, thanks again, Justice. I really appreciate you hopping on, man.
Sweet, dude. I appreciate you guys greatly, man. You guys are you guys are goats.
Hey,
my guy.
Let's go.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next Student Spotlight. Appreciate you, Justice, and stay tuned.
Appreciate it.